Hello, I'm Robin and welcome to Bookspin. I thought I'd try doing another book tag video. This one is called the Astounding Science Fiction tag, and I found this via Matthew on his channel, Man with a Hat Who Reads. So I just discovered this channel recently. Matthew has a lot of interesting book reviews and content in a variety of genres, including science fiction and fantasy. So I'd highly recommend you check out his channel. I'll leave a link below. And the original tag creator was Michael K. Vaughan, who has a ton of content I'm only just beginning to explore. So maybe you should check him out too. I'll also leave a link below. So in the Astounding Science Fiction tag, we have 8 questions. And the first question is, what was the first science fiction book that you read? What did you think of it? For me, the first science fiction book that I recall reading is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. I read this at the age of about 13 or 14, and this book shouldn't really need any introduction. It is a milestone in the history of science fiction and Gothic horror. So in Frankenstein, a scientist finds a way to create intelligent life, but he abandons his creation when he discovers he has made a monster. And this is, of course, a milestone in 19th century literature and is often considered to be the world's first true science fiction novel, first published in 1818. I did enjoy reading this as a young teenager, but I think I'd probably appreciate it a bit more now, as I think I'd probably have a better understanding of some of its themes and its significance within the history of science fiction. So I may reread this again soon, perhaps next year. Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. The second question is, what was the last science fiction book that you read? What did you think of it? Quite recently, I read Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card. This is a very famous military sci-fi. It came out in 1985 and it won all kinds of awards, and many people rank this as one of their favourite science fiction books ever. Now, I did enjoy it, but I probably wouldn't rank it quite that highly. But let me just explain what it's about if you don't know. In Ender's Game, there is an especially gifted young boy, Ender, who gets sent to a military training academy at some time in the future, at a very young age, where he is groomed to become what is hoped to be humanity's saviour in an interstellar war against the Buggers. The Buggers are an aggressive insectoid alien race that threaten our very existence. This is definitely a classic within military science fiction. I did enjoy it, but I probably would rank its sequel, Speak of the Dead, much higher. So that is Ender's Game. Question 3. If you love science fiction, what made you love science fiction? So I'd say throughout my life, I've always enjoyed reading fiction in various genres, including sci-fi, but also fantasy and classics, philosophical fiction, and so on. But in the last few years, especially during COVID, I came to realize that science fiction is actually my favorite genre, to the extent that now it accounts for almost all of what I read. I think it's the big ideas which it explores, the imaginative world building, the endless possibilities within sci-fi, which I don't think can really be matched in any other literary genre. So the fourth question is, what is your favourite science fiction movie? So many options here, so many great sci-fi films. So I'm just going to mention one film which I think is perhaps not very well known, and that is Time Crimes. This is an exciting Spanish sci-fi thriller that plays around with time travel and some of the paradoxes that result from time travel. In Time Crimes, there is a middle-aged man who lives in the countryside with his wife, and one day his life gets turned upside down when he encounters a creepy masked killer just outside his house. So he flees from this man, and he happens upon a remote science laboratory in the woods near his home. And there he takes refuge and discovers a secret time machine. From this point, the story starts to get really interesting. I won't say anything more without spoiling it, but I just recommend you watch this if you are into time travel or thrillers or any kind of thought-provoking sci-fi. Give Time Crimes a watch. Okay, question 5. What is your favourite science fiction TV show? I'm going to say Black Mirror. If you've not heard of Black Mirror, if you're not familiar with it, this is a dystopian anthology series. You can see it now on Netflix. Each episode presents a very dark vision of the future. Each episode contains a self-contained story with a different cast, and I love this show. I enjoyed every single episode. I've watched them multiple times. I think this is well worth checking out if you haven't already seen it. Question 6. What science fiction book do you feel should be read more often? For this one, I'm going to say The Black Cloud by Fred Hoyle. I think this is an underrated 1950s classic. This is a first contact novel written by Fred Hoyle, who was an astrophysicist. So there's quite a lot of hard science fiction in the story. In The Black Cloud, there is an enormous and potentially apocalyptic black cloud that enters our solar system and causes mass panic on Earth. This cloud, it turns out, is actually a super intelligent gaseous alien life form. This is a really interesting take on the first contact genre, and I think more people should read this book. So I'm recommending this one, The Black Cloud by Fred Hoyle. Question 7. What is your favourite science fiction short story? Okay, for this one, I'm going to recommend Cordwainer Smith, that's the writer, and his short story, The Crime and the Glory of Commander Suzdal. You can find this in his collection, The Rediscovery of Man. Now, Cordwainer Smith was a very interesting character, and I think this story, it was published in the 1950s or perhaps 60s. All of Cordwainer Smith's stories, all of his science fiction is set within the same universe called The Instrumentality of Mankind, and it's pretty surreal. Okay, I could recommend any of these stories, but this one stands out in my mind. In The Crime and the Glory of Commander Suzdal, Commander Suzdal is the captain of a spaceship that gets attacked and overwhelmed by a monstrous all-male race on the planet Arakosia. Commander Suzdal's solution for survival and ultimately escaping his fate is both ingenious and truly bizarre. I won't go into detail because that would spoil it, but I will tell you that it involves cats and time travel. I highly recommend Cordwainer Smith and this collection, The Rediscovery of Man. So the final prompt is, what is your favourite science fiction book? For this one, I'm going to go back to Hyperion by Dan Simmons. I haven't read this for a very long time, and I plan to reread this at some point soon. Hyperion, I think, is one of the ultimate classics of sci-fi, along with things like Dune and Foundation. But if you're not familiar with Hyperion, this is an epic space opera structured in the same style as the Canterbury Tales. So there are 7 pilgrims who set forth towards the legendary time tunes on the planet Hyperion. As they set out on their epic journey, each pilgrim tells their tale in turn to explain why they're on this quest. Each story is fascinating and follows a different style of science fiction. So, for example, you've got military sci-fi in one story. You've got science fiction horror. In another story, you've got elements of cyberpunk, romance. There's so much going on. And this novel forms the backdrop for the sequel, which is called The Fall of Hyperion, where we ultimately find out what happens when they arrive at their destination. So really, to get the most out of this story, you should read both books. So I would definitely like to read both of those books again at some point soon. That about wraps things up. So if you wish to follow up on this tag yourself, please do so. I'm just going to tag one person, Sci-Fi Bookery. This is a new booktube channel with some really interesting review videos. I discovered some new sci-fi books from him that I wasn't aware of before, so go and check out his channel, Sci-Fi Bookery. I'll link below. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for some more sci-fi content.